Welcome everyone to Hank Monnig's senior speech. A member of the prep community since 6th grade, Hank has since proven himself to be a man of many talents. Where to even start? I could talk about his academic achievements, how Hank is a member of the National Honor Society and the Cum Laude Society, or I could talk about Hank's involvement in prep sports, how he's a captain on both the cross country and the basketball teams, and how, according to Hank, he would kick your butt at a match of ping pong. Or I could talk about his many extracurriculars, how as of June of last year, Hank is an Eagle Scout, as well as a member of the youth program at Reed Memorial. But let's be honest, when I think of Hank, I think of a kind, ridiculously creative soul. I think of a poet, I think of a pianist, I think of a talented singer-songwriter, and I also think that all of you should follow his music on Instagram at Hank Monnig Music. That's at Hank Monnig Music, seriously, give him a follow. His latest single, California Dreamin', is really good, and I'll even forgive him for not knowing who the Mamas and the Papas were until he wrote a song titled California Dreamin'. For his speech today, Hank is joined by his parents, Harriet and Scott, as well as by several different dear family friends. Please give them all a warm prep welcome. And now for the speech, please welcome Hank to the podium.
Deja vu, the feeling as though one has lived through the present moment before. Let's start with a couple of stories. The first is more commonplace that I'm sure some of you will relate to. It's freshman year, basketball season. We have an away game at Monnig in Athens. I walk into the gym and immediately recognize everything. The people sitting in the bleachers, the layout of the gym, the conversations I overheard. It was an eerie feeling because I knew I'd never been there before. Here's the second story. It's freshman year, basketball season, away game at Mondig. I walk into their gym and immediately recognize everything. People sitting in the bleachers, the layout of the gym, the conversations I overheard. It was an eerie feeling because I knew I'd never been there before. Here's the last story. It's freshman year, basketball season, away game at Mondig. I walk into the gym and immediately recognize everything. It was an eerie feeling because I knew I'd never been there before. Seriously though, here's the second story. It's 2010 and to one British man, every day is Groundhog Day. He can no longer watch TV, listen to the radio, read the paper, nor read his favorite magazine because he thought he had already seen those things before. He told his doctor it felt like he was, quote, reliving the past. Many of you might have experienced something similar to the first story I told, yet the extreme case of the British man is something out of the ordinary. Scientists and researchers do not fully understand the physiological mechanism behind that case and all cases of deja vu, and therefore I don't possess all the answers. But in this speech, I'd like to share with you some bits of information, research, and some questions I asked that help me broaden my knowledge of deja vu and its presence in our world. A French expression that has been transferred to our everyday speech, deja vu literally translates to already seen. It was coined in 1876 by French psychologist and researcher Émile Boirac in his monograph L'avenir des sciences physiques, which is French for the psychology of the future. Even though most of his work was involved in parapsychology, which is considered pseudoscience by scientific leaders of the world today, his writings and journals are considered the first to mention deja vu. Scientists that specialize in brain function and memory have come up with over a dozen possible explanations of the phenomenon. However, I will only be discussing three main theories this afternoon: the memory-based theory, the dual neurological processing theory, and the dream-based theory. Let's talk about the memory-based. To explain this in your head, I'd like for you to picture the route you take to get home from school each day. When you get home, you then enter the same door in your house, and like every other day, and that routine doesn't waver much, right? Now let's say I ride home with you and we take the same route, we enter through the same door. If I ask you the question, do you remember taking this route home and walking through this door yesterday? You would probably say, yes, of course I do. I do this every day, it's my routine. When you answer that question, you are using your recognition memory. This form of memory enables you to realize the event that you are experiencing has happened before. When deja vu occurs, your recognition memory is triggered by some sort of outside stimulus, and therefore your brain makes you think you have seen this event before. It's a slight hiccup in the system, yet it is thought to have a major role in the happening of deja vu. The second theory is the dual neurological processing theory. Constantly, our brains are receiving incoming signals about our environment, our body, and other similar stimuli. The left temporal lobe of our brain receives these signals, sorts them, and then processes them for different reasons, one of which being memory and recognition. When we experience an event, the temporal lobe receives two signals at the same time, one from the right and one from the left, that allow us to recognize and experience an event. The dual neurological processing theory hypothesizes that if the signals desynchronize by even a couple of milliseconds, they could be perceived as two separate experiences, in turn causing deja vu. Not much research has been done with this theory, yet I find it to be the most interesting one. The third and final theory is the dream-based theory. This theory is the idea that when some people experience deja vu, it is perhaps a duplicate of a dream they had in the past. In a 2004 study done by Brown University, 20% of the participants reported their deja vu experiences were from dreams, and 40% claimed to recognize things from both their reality and from their dreams. Research taken in 1966 also suggests that elements of our dreams may play an important role in the recognition of a situation. If a certain amount of key features of a dream show up in real life, this may cause our brain to recognize them subconsciously. Whether this research and data is applicable to everyone is questionable, yet it is very likely that our dreams and the elements of them highly influence our experiences of deja vu. In addition to being a scientific phenomenon that I find very fascinating, deja vu has a strong influence on popular culture, whether in art, music, or film. Even though not many movies deal with the actual scientific phenomenon, many borrow heavily from the realm of familiarity and fantasize it slightly to make it more marketable. For example, in Groundhog Day, a 1993 film starring Bill Murray, a narcissistic weatherman is stuck in a time loop and has to relive Groundhog Day until he finds his way out of the loop. Similarly, in The Edge of Tomorrow, a film released in 2014, the main protagonist must relive the day where he fights off invincible aliens until he finally defeats them. These two movies are drastically different in style, one being a comedy, the other science fiction, action, but they both include elements of deja vu, and the character is reliving the same day over and over again. Deja vu also has a strong presence in popular music. In the intro song that you all heard as you were walking in, Olivia Rodrigo reminisces about fun things she did with her past lover, and asks him if he gets deja vu when he's doing similar things with another girl. J. Cole, Beyonce, Post Malone, and many other artists have similar songs that all depict in some way the sense of familiarity when with a new lover. To better understand the frequency of deja vu in high schoolers, I performed a very scientific study on my fellow seniors and asked them 3 questions. First, they've had deja vu before. Then, if so, how often do they have it? And lastly, if it has any meaning to them. To my surprise, everyone except 3 of my classmates had experienced it before. This is around 87% of the senior class. And out of this 87%, 1/3 reported having deja vu as often as every 2 or 3 months. According to Cleveland Clinic Health Essentials, for teenagers, it is normal to have deja vu around twice a year. And they say that if it happens more often, you should, quote, get it addressed. Now, I think that each individual's brain is so complex and different that this suggestion isn't always relevant, but if the episodes do tend to last longer, or if they cause a sense of discomfort, you maybe should talk to a doctor. I'd also like to share some responses that I got from my classmates from the question, does it have any meaning when it occurs? To Fred McDougall, when deja vu happens, he says, quote, oh shoot. I can't quite interpret the meaning of this, but it seems to me you're just slightly shocked by it. To Nacho Jack and Sarah Beth, deja vu simply causes a sense of weirdness and delusion. To Annie, she questions if, quote, her life is so boring that she does the same thing every day over and over. Maybe for her it's time for a change. My answer to the question is this. When I first experienced deja vu, I was very intrigued yet very confused. At the time, I didn't understand much about our brain and how it functions, and therefore I wanted to learn more about it. I took the experience and turned it into a personal teaching moment. And this has been my goal in this speech, to share with you my understanding of this phenomenon that is highly present in our world. I'd like to extend a thank you to all those who have helped me get to where I am today. Thank you for your kindness, patience, and support in everything I do. And let this speech serve as a reminder of the complexity and individuality of your own brain. That is what makes you who you are. Thank you.
Great job, Hank. Seniors, come up and congratulate Hank. Everyone else, you are dismissed.